And what is up, guys? Me, and Jericho are back at the wiring job, and it is very, what's the word? Give me the word.
Tedious.
Extremely tedious, especially the way we want it. Especially the way we want it, right?
Yep.
Okay.
The way we want it.
Yes, but it is turning out really nice. Once again, we didn't do anything too crazy as far as complicated for anybody not to be able to follow along with. But all we did, just like we said we would last time, all we did was actually extend 4 of the sensors. So this one being the, let's see, all greens, this one being the map sensor. So we did extend that so it would reach to here. This is all going to be tucked underneath the intake manifold, so we just have it thrown there for now. We also extended the throttle positioning sensor, the idle air control valve, and also our air intake temperature sensor right here. This one right now is actually a GM style because we are using a GM style intake air temperature sensor, which is going to be on the planet on our cold side intercooler piping, which is going to be somewhere around right there. Okay, so that's pretty much all we did. Also coming along on this side, we did shorten up the, I don't know if you happen to notice last video, but there's like a bundle of wires right here. All those bundle of wires seem to have been maybe a mistake or maybe used for something else by Honda. There it is. It was kind of like that wrapped on the side. That is all for ignition coil number 1. So what we did was we pretty much trimmed the fat off of it and shortened up the wires. So pretty much turned out like that. You can see that the crank positioning sensor is already there. Let me see if I can get my, there we go. See, we already have it loomed up right here with our braided loom. Also, you'll see that we have another wire going here. This is actually going to be for our oil pressure sender for our oil pressure gauge. So we did eliminate the factory oil pressure switch. So we're actually going to be using that for our turbo oil feed right there. So that turned out really good. For whatever reason, this particular VTEC solenoid assembly does not have the oil safety switch on it. So that's the way it came in the Japanese model for whatever reason. So we didn't see any sense in keeping the wire connector for that. So we eliminated that. We actually traced them all the way back to the computer or ECU and snipped them there and removed them completely. We also removed the harness, the single wire that used to go to the oil pressure switch as well. Okay, coming along on, so that's pretty much all we have done as far as the loom modification. It's just extending those, and like I said, you do not need to go to the extreme of wrapping them in this type of loom, but believe me, it looks awesome. It looks almost invisible, especially in a black engine bay like this. As far as our power supply goes, just I guess nowadays traditional Starion wire tuck. You have the original wire that would go to the positive side of the battery, which is actually right here. It's pretty much the solid white wire that's going to feed the fuse box or the relay box, fuse box, whatever you want to call it. We have it going through a grommet right here through through the frame, and then going to a positive lug right here. So that'll pretty much give us power to the cabin, all the lights, the brake lights, everything. And then also it will supply the power to our connector that we will be modifying to hook into our Honda. Let me go ahead and go over that and show you where we're at on that, and show you what we're going to wind up doing. It's very messy in here as well. Honda. Wait, see, you have Honda mounted right there. Turned out really nice. We went ahead and used those insert nuts, so everything just pretty much bolts in the way it should. A little off on the right one, but it's all right. Okay, so what we're going to wind up using to power up this guy and to get all of our starting signal and everything we're going to need, the original harness that is right here that used to go for the engine loom, the original engine loom. What we did was pretty much just cut the connector off right there. We will not be using all these wires. We'll probably only be using maybe 4 or 5 of them. So definitely have our starter signal. I don't remember if it's this one or if it's this one, but we'll test them out. So all we're pretty much going to be using this for is our starting signal, our key power, constant power, if any, if needed, and maybe some grounds that are on here. And then everything else we're just going to depin and discard. So we don't need that. So as soon as we get a ground wire going to our battery, we're going to go ahead and plug this in here and pretty much turn the key and figure out what's what on this. So that way we can just make a quick disconnect harness for a Starion to Honda wiring harness or Hondetta. So that'll work out pretty good as well. We did draw back a few wires that we will be needing to run with our computer. Like I said, this would not be necessary if you use just an RSX plug-and-play Hondata or K-Pro, whatever you want to call it, once again. What we have to do with the automatic transmission type of the budget K-Pro is actually run our vehicle speed sensor signal, which is right here. You can see I put the nice connector on that one as well. So we have our power and ground, and then we have our signal wire. And then the signal wire is going to be going to the accessories harness, which we'll show you later on, onto the K-Pro itself. And then just a few little settings have to be set in the K-Pro for it to register the vehicle speed sensor. Because I guess it's actually located on a different pin than the manual transmission ECU. So let's see what else we have. We already ran our ethanol content sensor. That is actually running into the our new factory loom as well. Mm-hmm. This right here is actually running to our fan temperature switch. Let me see if I can get it right here. You can see that one right there. That's just a 190 degree temperature switch, and that'll be running to a standalone, well, pretty much its own little relay that we're going to add here, and that's going to power up our fans, which are going to go on this side. We're not going to put any fans on in between the engine and the radiator. We decided to mount them in front of it. So, all right, guys. So this is where we're at now. Jericho covered up all the ignition coils. Now they are all wrapped. Oh, I'm sorry. You got one more left, man. One more, man. I thought you were done. But he did do all the injectors. I know it looks like spaghetti right now, but it needs to before we sort it and kind of consolidate everything together into one bundle. But it is looking great, and this took literally hours to do. And it is very, very, once again, I know we said it, tedious as all hell, but it's going to be worth it in the end. Okay, oh, look at that. And we still need to freaking wrap those wires, too.
Oh, that's going to be easy.
Okay, thank you. Okay. But anyway, while he was doing that, I was figuring out what we're going to need to power up our K-Pro. And remember I had mentioned that I was going to be using the Starion's connector. I forgot what they call it. I think they call it a B38 connector. But correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sure somebody will. So this is what I'm going to be using out of all those. It's a total of 5 wires. I have the black with the yellow I will be using. And let me see, if you turn the pin, which way does it go? Which way does it go? Connector side. Okay. Well, it goes like this. Okay. I don't even know which way it goes. Okay, on this side of the connector, I guess the more isolated side, right there, we'll start with that. So the black with the yellow, the thick gauge one right here, is going to be our starting signal. So that goes into our cape, or actually hybrid racing adapter harness. This one right here is actually for our coolant temperature gauge. I have not yet found where I'm going to be getting this from, because according to the RSX, they have kind of like a CAN bus multiplex little module that feeds the information to the gauge cluster for the temperature sensor. So I gotta see where I'm gonna get that off the Honda computer. If it does not work with this, we'll just have to run its own coolant temp sensor, or for the temperature sensor for the gauge. So that is the yellow with the green stripe right there. Okay, and then the solid blue one is our 12-volt key power. And our solid black one, there's actually two black ones that look the same. This one's the thicker gauge one. So we're using the thicker gauge one, and that one is our 12-volt constant. And then our bright green one right here is actually a ground. So we'll be using those. That'll be going into the factory location of the Starion, and we'll be wiring this once again into our hybrid racing adapter harness. So let me start wiring that in, and we'll go from there. Okay, and so I have the factory Starion connector plugged in right now, and you can see I already started wiring up to our hybrid racing adapter harness. And the only ones looks like I'm only using 3 for now. I'm using my starting signal, my constant power, and my key switch power, which are these ones. So starting signal, key switch power, black is constant, and the blue is key switch power. And those are going into my orange and red wires that I have for my main relays right here. And those instructions do come with the hybrid racing. Tell you what to plug in. Okay, you can see I've just put this off to the side. This is originally can be used for a fuel pump relay, but like I said, we already have one. So this is ground. So we can probably use that for something else later on, maybe the gauges or whatever. Man, this wiring is taking forever. Okay, he did finally finish off all the coils, and you can see they look really, really nice. He's starting to work on the other sensor wires right here, like the VTEC sensor. Oh, you already did the VTEC sensor.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, let me turn on my light here. You already did the VTEC sensor. Cool, fuel injectors, and just we need to wrap up all that spaghetti.
This is the last one.
And that's the last set?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Cool.
And then we'll wrap up the spaghetti.
Oh, what I also didn't show yet was we did make a starting wire. You have a starting wire in there. It's somewhat hidden. You can see it coming off the starter over there. And that one's, we still need to mount it up against the body. And it's going to our terminal here. We also have our ground, which is attached to the engine. That is already pretty much running under there. That wire right here needs to get mounted up against the body or against the frame. And then it's coming to our other terminal right there as well. We still need to mount the alternator, make another wire for that, which comes back to our 100 amp fuse, which is going to be mounted in here, and then back once again to our positive lug or terminal. And yeah, dude, this is crazy. It's crazy. It's a turn off the flash, probably blinding you, huh?
And we thought it was going to be a plug and play.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
Plug and play. All right, guys. So let me work more on mounting those relays while Jericho finishes this up, and I'll be right back with you.
Last wires.
All right, guys. I think we are going to wrap it up here for tonight. I'm not sure how long this video is. I think it's pretty short, but in reality, we're talking about a couple days worth of work that we've already put into it. I don't know if you've noticed that Jericho did not change. The day changed. Jericho did not change. The day changed. So Jericho's actually shortening up our ground wires we're going to be using. You can see he did finish. Let me turn on my flash. Okay. It is all wrapped up. Everything that is visible, everything that we wanted to wrap up in this nice braided loom is complete. We're just going to kind of secure it with small little zip ties. Just pinch them up, pinch it here, and probably tie it off. And then I don't think we're going to put a cover on. I'm not too sure. I don't think we're going to put a cover. I mean, it actually looks really nice like that. Yeah, Jericho just needs to finish up the grounds, and we just need to wrap all this stuff that goes all the way into the cabin. Everything in the cabin side right here is pretty much, it's all plugged in. Now we're going to wind up drawing back the loom, like I said, so we can wrap it all. We're going to wind up running it behind the stereo, and then up along the, I guess you can say behind the firewall, and then it'll go ahead and plug right into our ECU. And we still have not ran the wire. Should have ran it today, but did not run the wire for the fuel pump relay, which is in the back. We did put our big old fuse holder that we will be using for our alternator wire right here, and also any other power supply or any straight to battery connectors that we want to use. It just plug right into here rather than running a whole bunch of wires to the actual terminal itself and kind of cluttering it. But yeah, we still need to make the alternator wire for it. Jericho did add the body ground already. Yeah, we added the body ground right here, so everything's nice and tucked up under there. Really nice. I love the way this thing is turning out, man. Whoops. We are tired.
We're done.
We are almost done. Almost done, man. I'd say the next time we make a video, it's gonna be a startup video, right? Because for the most part, we already have our fuel lines made up from before. We just need to mount our fuel cooler that we plan to mount right there. Our ethanol sensor will be located right there. It is already bolted up against the body and the little tab right down there. And then I believe we just got to probably make a couple more hoses, and that's it. We do have all the fittings that we do need to finish it off. And then pretty much give it some, well, we haven't finished up this guy, but we'll probably wind up just removing the header and just start it like that, right?
Yep.
Just because I do want to hear it just fire over, and so make me feel a lot better.
It already starts.
Yeah, it did. We did test crank it, and we did shoot out all the coils, and I'll put that little video on here after this. But but anyway, thanks for hanging in there with us. Nearing completion before we start the next little project on the project, which is going to be mounting the gauges, and we have a pretty good idea on what we're going to do with that. We'll show you that next time, and pretty much get the radiator, start getting the radiator on in there, and wiring up our fans. And shoot, man, we're almost ready, huh?
Put everything back.
Start putting everything back together, so I can start building the exhaust, finish that off, start building the exhaust on it, and still have not ordered the oxygen sensor or the air-fuel ratio sensor. Still need to find that. Those are a little costly, and I'm iffy about getting a aftermarket one. I do prefer the Densos or the NTK. I think they call them NTK on that one. So the Nick, yeah. So cool. Oh yeah, I did wind up making the other side of our boost solenoid connection right here. See, that's gonna tuck in there. So it's very nice. I love these connectors. I mean, I know I've said it many times, but I really do love working with these connectors. Very nice and neat, very durable, very weatherproof, and that pretty much runs through here where our old engine loom used to run through, and this is pretty much going to go in through that hole. And we got to kind of come up with some sort of grommeting or something for that. So very good. Very good, man. Well, like, subscribe, leave any comment below, or let your hate flow. All right, guys. You guys have a good night. And Jericho's going to stay a little bit longer and finish that up. All right, guys. Take it easy. Go over it. Oh. Yeah!
What in the world?
It shot all the coils out.
Why?
Because there's no spark plugs. It shot them all out.